that you were just like, holy fuck?
Well, it was a war zone. Like they sent me. I don't know what I did. You know, I pissed off because when you go into prison, you go to like these classification units where they classify you to what prison they're going to send you. And I pissed. I mean, I had tattoos on my face, you know, and like they didn't like me from the get go,
Right.
and none of the officers, and they ended up classifying me to it's called Ferguson Unit, which is a gladiator school. So basically, they send all the young lifers from like 17 to 25, everyone with life sentences, to this prison, and it's a war zone.
Fuck.
And I honestly didn't think I was gonna probably live through that, but I did. It was insane. Countless riots, tear gas, fucking people getting killed left and right. Yeah.
I heard a story you got in a fight and something happened to your eye, right? This was a story that one of the guys at the tattoo shop, Joel Ruiz, Rooster on Instagram, who kind of helped hook this up too, because I appreciate that, because he Instagrammed you when we went out to, it's September, but he told me a story about this. That something happened, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, I got in tons of fights. I got my ass kicked a whole lot. But the thing is like, prison is portrayed very poorly, I think, in like television, and so people have this conception of what happens in prison. If you go to prison, as long as you fight, it doesn't matter if you get your ass kicked or not, but as long as you fight and you don't give up, you get respect, even if you get beat up. And it doesn't matter. And I got beat up a lot, and gradually I started to the point where I didn't get beat up. And like when I first got there, I got in a fight because whenever you get there, they give you what's called a heart check to see if you're going to fight or not. And they picked the biggest dude there that I had to fight, and I fought him. And he only hit me one time. Like, we fought for like 5 minutes, and he only hit me one time, but this dude was huge, and he hit me right in the temple. And then right after he hit me, like, I almost like fucking passed out, but I didn't. And then I was all dazed, and then we started fighting again, and then the guards came in and rushed in and broke it up and stuff. But from that, I had to have it was a fucking nightmare situation because of the medical care there. Like the next day, like my vision was completely black, and I had to have surgery in prison on my eye. And God, it's such a long story, but long story short, I had to have surgery on my eye. I went to this prison hospital. They did the operation. They sent me to a prison to recover. I had to lay face down in bed for 3 months. And they were giving me steroid eye drops that I was allergic to, and they didn't know it. And it was causing it caused swelling on my brain. And I kept telling them something was wrong. And then they would send me back to the hospital. The surgeon would look at my eye, and he realized I was allergic to these eye drops. And so he discontinued the eye drops, and they had also taken me off my pain meds. And he put me back on the pain meds, told them to stop giving me the eye drops, the steroids, and then he sent me back to the prison. Well, the prison ignored his recommendation to take me off the eye drops. They took away my pain meds. They kept giving me the eye drops. The swelling just kept getting worse, pressing on my brain to where, like, all I could do is basically, like, fucking scream and sleep. Like, if I wasn't fucking sleeping, like, just completely knocked out, I was in such excruciating pain. It was fucking unreal. And they thought I was just trying to get pain meds, and they would send me back, and then the doctor, like, I have a huge fucking medical file where I was going to sue the fuck out of them. But they kept sending me back to the doctor. The doctor would freak the fuck out that they're giving me the steroids, and he's like, your eye is pressing on your brain. And that's why I was in such bad pain. I hadn't eaten in like 3 weeks. I went from like 190 pounds down to 134 in 2 weeks.
Holy fuck.
And then they didn't believe me. They kept fucking up. They ended up taking me to a prison for the criminally insane because they thought I was fucking crazy. I told them if they didn't get me to the fucking hospital and get me some pain meds, that I was going to rip my fucking eye out. I was in like such excruciating pain. And so they took me to this fucking, it's called Jester 4 for the criminally insane, took me to this place, completely stripped me naked, put me in a fucking cell with no bed, just a fucking shitter. It's freezing cold. I have no clothes. I had an eye patch on my eye. My eye's swollen out like seriously like 3 inches outside of my face. So I'm sitting in there. I'm just like crouched in a fetal position, like squatting down for like days. And eventually they had doctors see me and they saw me and they realized that I was telling the truth. They gave me pain meds. They fucking sent me back to the hospital and eventually it was cleared up and shit, but it was a nightmare. It was way worse than what I just said because it was some crazy shit. But yeah.
Probably makes.
That was my first year there. So
holy shit, man!
Great.
It is crazy, man. And to come out of that with the attitude that you have, man. I mean, do you look back on those times, and what do you gather from them? Because at a certain point, you came out and you were like, I'm gonna get sober, and you talked about it on the Tattoo Artist magazine little trailer to. You just had an issue come out with Tam, and you talked about you knew when you got out of prison that you were going to go back to those times, and at a certain point because you had tried before to get clean, and at a certain point you did get clean, but after that you look back on those times, and what do you draw from that? Because that's some crazy shit that you've gone through, from your brother dying to running from the law to being in prison and having not just that prison experience, but a fucked up crazy medical, psychological prison experience on top of it all,
Well, the thing is whenever I went to prison, I had a really bad drug habit. And then through my time there, and when I got out, I didn't think I had a problem. So I got out and I started drinking, I started smoking pot. I didn't think it was a problem. As soon as I got out of prison in Texas, I went straight out to California and I started working on Hollywood Boulevard tattooing there at Redline Tattoo, and I didn't think that I was like a drug addict or anything. It was just a crazy time, and then slowly I started going back into my old ways, and the next thing I know, I was a full-blown drug addict again, and that's when the nightmare got really bad because before then I didn't care. I never tried to stop, but then I didn't want to do it, and I kept trying to stop, and I couldn't. And it was a crazy chain of events, and a couple of years of being in a nightmare, not being able to get out, in and out of jail again. There was a good year where, like, I wouldn't even show my face at a tattoo shop or anything because I didn't want anybody to see how fucked up I was. Because I looked like a nightmare. I looked like a skeleton. I mean, it was fucking terrible. Like, I fucking sold all my tattoo equipment, and I was just living on the streets, and I was just robbing and stealing, and just in this nightmare that I couldn't get out. And I ended up back in jail. And what had happened was, I was sitting in that jail cell, and I was fucking terrified. And I wasn't terrified because, and I talked about this in the interview, I wasn't terrified because they had just come and told me that I was going to prison. I was terrified because they had just come and told me they were releasing me. And I knew what was going to happen. I knew that I was going to die. I knew because every time I'd been in that same situation where I said, okay, I'm finally off the drugs, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this different. I'm not going to go back to that lifestyle. I'm not going to go back to the fucking drugs and the using and all of that. But no matter how bad I wanted to, I always went back to it. So I knew that that's what was waiting for me, and I was fucking terrified. And I ended up getting, I got released, and I ended up checking myself into a rehab. And I just followed the instructions there, and everything changed. That's the point where everything really changed.
And what clicked, do you think?
Well, whenever I was in this rehab, like I thought it was a bunch of fucking bullshit. Um, I figured I was just kind of biding my time while I was there until I went back out and went back to the same shit. But there were guys that came out to the rehab, and they would come out and they would speak and they would tell their story, and I would listen, and they hadn't done the things I had done. They didn't, live the way I had lived, but I started to relate to them because they knew that same pain, that same desperation that I had, and so I started listening, and I started to believe that they had really been trapped in the same nightmare that I was in, but they were out, and they had made it out, and then I thought, you know what, if what they're saying works, then maybe my story could help somebody else, and I could do what they were doing. I didn't care about myself at that point at all. And I actually probably had like a deep hatred for myself for all the things that I had done. But I thought maybe I could help someone else because I still did care about other people, just not myself. And it was through a lot of introspection and a lot of work on myself. It took a whole lot of that because you really can't transmit something you don't have. And at that point, I didn't have anything to offer anyone else. So I had to start with myself. Yeah.
And that's you do that now. You go out and volunteer and speak at juvenile halls and different things, or you have in the past.
I do, but I honestly, because things have gotten really busy and crazy for me, that I haven't had the chance to do as much as I was. There was a point for about 4 years where I was going, each week I was going to 3 different places. I was going to a juvenile facility, I was going to a prison, I was going to an adult rehab, 3 different places every week. And then I was also taking maybe 4 to 5 guys to rehab every week also on top of that. And then tattooing just really started getting crazy with the traveling. I haven't had as much opportunity to do that. So mostly what I've been doing lately, I have gone out to a place here in Philly. It's a juvenile detention center and spoke out there and stuff. But mostly what I do right now is I have an email set up for people to contact me, and I post from time to time about, if anybody's having a problem they want a way out, maybe I can steer them in the right direction. So I set up an email for that. And so through that, I've built up, there's quite a few people that will regularly check in. It's been pretty amazing. I've got kind of a large internet following, and it's a bit overwhelming at times, but I find it's a much larger platform to reach people that are in need. But sometimes, like I said, it gets a little overwhelming because when I do post that, I get hundreds of emails. And then on top of me having to draw my tattoos and then tattoo all day, and then I've got 100 emails of people that are desperately seeking help, then I have to write all of them. But it's definitely worth it. But it's
Taxing.
Yeah.
That's what's great about the time we are tattooing in, and the exciting time that the internet and the availability of people and the ability to, so you're not able to get out to these different places physically anymore and speak and share your story and encourage, but with a tweet or an Instagram photo or a post on Facebook or an email, somebody can be encouraged, or a podcast like this, or like what Tattoo Artist Magazine is doing, in a feature like that gets a broad scope of audience. You can bring